movies and TV. So I know we've been watching a lot of that during this quarantine, um, and so Matthew, you're going to start us off. What have you been watching during this shutdown, movies and TV wise?
Well, I've been watching a lot of things, but I've been binging Grey's Anatomy and
Nice.
Umbrella Academy, and
Oh, there you go.
both fantastically good, fantastically good. I can't give no spoilers if you haven't seen it. So, I mean, but it's a fantastic from front to back. Like the storyline is great, the twists are great, the characters are awesome. It's really cool all the way around. And as far as Grey's Anatomy goes, like I've just been sucked into that completely.
That TV show I feel like has been on forever. Like
I think it's on like
predates
16
humanity.
seasons.
It's been going on for a long, long time.
I think it's like
been
16 seasons.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say 20 something, but yeah.
Yeah, they're almost with the Simpsons, and that shows.
Yeah.
We're trying to catch up real quick.
Mm-hmm. So both. I made it to like season 9 on Grey's Anatomy,
Golly.
and yeah, I've been going at it. Me and my girlfriend have been watching literally continuously. It's hard to get out of that show once you're in it, to be honest. Like,
well, yeah.
You see
and
some.
It takes
You see
place
some.
in a hospital, and it's hard when you get in a hospital. It's hard to get out sometimes because they won't let you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like being in a hospital.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, dang, I gotta get out of here, but nope, I can't.
Like, no.
You're hooked up to machines.
So you mentioned Umbrella Academy. I have not watched it yet. I'm aware of like the comic series and the novels. Tell to those who don't know what that is. Tell us a little bit about that. And Lane, I know you've seen it, so y'all will be able to kind of chime in on that. But tell us a little bit about Umbrella Academy.
Well, it's really cool. Like the storyline is I can't remember all the names right now off the top of my head, but Lane, help me out here.
Yeah, so there's so Luther's like the main dude, or the biggest of the children. And then there's Clyde or Klaus. I always say Clyde.
Klaus.
He's kind of the outgoing, like out there one. Number 5.
Number 5 is my favorite, honestly.
Yeah, it's funny about number 5 because he's like the kid, but he's like the most mature out of all of them.
Yeah, the most mature.
At times you see him kind of his kid qualities come out, and you're like, oh, okay, well he's still a kid.
Yeah, and then you have Diego.
Yeah, his character is really interesting in the second season. He took a weird turn, which I knew it was going to, but yeah, it's just funny to see.
Yeah, him. And then Allison was I like her superpower.
Yeah,
and there's a lot in her story as far as, and even in the second season, and with it taking place in Dallas, it's really cool how they kept that storyline going and just kind of figured out how to incorporate another storyline in that time frame for that season.
That was really neat.
Really cool.
I thought they were just going to keep going with the her and Luther thing. Well, which they are, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting spin on things. I really like that.
Yeah, and let's not forget Vanya.
Vanya, obviously, she's like one of the main ones.
Yeah,
they all are.
And honestly, like I won't spoil it, but for the people that haven't watched it,
right?
Like a lot of you see in the beginning of it, you're like, oh, Vanya, okay. By the end of the first season, you're gonna be like, oh, wow. Yeah. You'll kind of see it coming because it'll kind of explain later on, but you'll see how she is. She's a very important piece to that storyline.
Yeah, because the first you think, you're like, why is she even here? And then you're like, oh, well, I see now.
That makes sense. The way they kind of introduce everybody like just one by one. At first, when I watched it, when I first got into it, I was kind of confused. But they kind of go through and show everybody, and show a little bit of the background, and then everybody kind of has an episode of their own to where they go back and see where they started at when they were kids. It's So the way they incorporated that and the way they told that through the episodes and the timeline of the episodes is really cool as far as doing flashbacks and stuff.
So season 1, you learn about each character. Okay. I really like shows that do that, because then you've got all this context, and then they throw in this, big ordeal, and then you kind of know how each one works when they face that.
Yeah, and they actually do like an intro of a flashback of that character, so you kind of learn a little bit more about that character before they explain more throughout the story, which is really cool. So you can they'll fill you in on who the character is, and then it all starts making sense within the storyline of what's going on at that current time. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Wow.
It's very, very interesting. And honestly, the shooting on it and everything, like the shots and everything, are awesome. They did a really good job on it all together. I think it was very well put together from beginning to end. And you get to know about every character in the show. Like you get an idea of every character. So they kind of go through everybody, and it's cool. So you'll know if you watch and pay attention, you'll know where it's at, and it's really fantastic how the plot, becomes the way it is at the very end of the show. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So for those who have not seen it, where can they find Umbrella Academy?
Netflix. Go on Netflix.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well,
Grey's Anatomy's on Netflix too. I mean, a lot of people know if you watch Grey's Anatomy. So.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll move on to Lane. What do you have for movies and TV?
So I have a movie actually. It's on Hulu Live, so I'm going to say that first. I've been watching a lot of Hulu Live lately. But this movie dates back to 2004, I believe. And it's a movie called Envy. And it stars Jack Black and Ben Stiller, which is a very funny combo because I don't even know of them being in a movie together besides Tropic Thunder. And so, to see him in that was really funny. I actually had seen this DVD a long, long time ago at my aunt and uncle's house, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then when I saw it on Hulu the other day, it unlocked a hidden memory. I was like, I hadn't seen it, and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and just watch it because it's an hour and a half, easy watch. But basically, the plot itself is kind of odd, and it's not really – it definitely doesn't focus on the plot. It's very obvious that they're like, we're going to hire two, big upcoming movie stars and just let them be the movie, basically. And on top of the third character, they just put him in a room. They're like, okay, be you. And they're like, got it. And then the third actor that came out of nowhere that I didn't even know he was in the movie was Christopher Walken. And it just was so hilarious the way he enters the film because he's just a random hobo that shows up. And him and Ben Stiller are making deals on the side. And it's just what the heck? This couldn't get any weirder, but I loved it the whole time. I couldn't stop watching. And so basically, so I'll say this without ruining anything. Basically, Jack Black invents this. Well, Jack Black and Ben Stiller work together at some factory. And Ben Stiller's basically telling Jack Black, hey, man, you got to focus on your job. You're not paying attention. And then while he's saying that, of course, he's not paying attention. He's like, you know what? I could invent something that would make me really rich. And he does. And it's called Vaporize. And it basically, he sprayed on animals, turds, and they go away. And everyone's just baffled by it. And so he gets super mega rich off of this. And Ben Stiller's like, what the heck? I could have done that. And so the whole movie is him being envious of what Jack Black has. And
yeah, okay.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
But God, some of the funniest moments were when Ben Stiller and Christopher Walken were just sitting there and Christopher Walken's trying to give Ben Stiller advice, and he's like I don't know, man, that's not really good advice. And he's like, no, it is. Don't worry. And then Jack Black's just so Jack Black the whole time, and it's a funny movie. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but yeah, definitely check it out. It's on Hulu Live.
I definitely need to check that out.
I think
it's pretty funny. Like I said, the plot itself, you're gonna be okay, I get the setup, the ending of it. I was just kind of okay, yeah, that's whatever. Yeah. Other than that, like the whole rest of the movie is pretty funny. There's some funny parts in there.
So it seems to be a movie because I'd never heard of it, but maybe something that kind of flew under the radar in 2004 that
Oh yeah.
maybe didn't get a lot of popularity. So I'm wondering, or if there was a reason for that, or if they just weren't as well known at the time. But
Yeah, I think it was a combination of them not being well known. I always look up reviews before I watch a movie, and of course, comedies get bashed the hardest, but this one especially got a really low rating, which I don't know why, because I thought it was pretty funny. That's why sometimes I'm like, I'm not gonna trust the rating because I just look at the actors that are in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hit or
I'm glad
miss
I
when it
did.
comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a hit or miss.
exactly. And this one was definitely a hit. I was like, I'm glad I watched it. Like, I'm glad it wasn't
Yeah.
just like, oh, that was a waste of my time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
well,
definitely
2004. That's like around the time I think Jack Black did Nacho Libre.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Nacho
So
Libre
he was kind of on his way
shortly after.
in School of Rock, around that time. So he
Mm-hmm.
had to have been on his way at that point.
Yeah, see, I
Ben
think
Stiller,
those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, those movies kind of took the spotlight, and this one, like you said, just went under the radar for whatever reason.
Yeah. And see, whenever I went to go watch Nacho Libre, it was me and my dad, the only one in the movie theater. We were the only ones watching it.
Yeah,
But it was I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's a very like the style. People either love it or hate it. Like there's a ton of people that I've met that are like, I just don't get Nacho Libre or like Napoleon Dynamite, like films like that. And other people are like, oh my god, this is like the best thing ever since sliced bread. So
Yeah.
you never know.
Well, they call it like cult classics. Basically they come out and they bomb in the theater, and then they come out on, on video or, well, I guess not video anymore. We have like streaming and DVD, but like when it comes out, for home entertainment, it starts to pick up a following. People are like, oh, what was this movie? Either they rented it or, picked it up at the store. It's like it gathers that following later on, and they call it like a cult classic. But yeah, movies like Dynamite and Nacho Libre. I used to loop those movies basically every day in high school. So, and they came out, well before that. So, that's definitely an interesting movie. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, for sure. You won't regret it.
For sure.
So, well, the movie that I have is called The Gentleman. So this movie, I believe, came out at the beginning of this year, and so it actually was in theaters, believe it or not. And for some reason, I missed it. I totally didn't even know this movie existed until a while back during the beginning of the shutdown. I was like, oh man, this looks awesome. And so basically, The Gentleman it's a movie directed by Guy Ritchie, which if you're not familiar with him, he's done movies like Snatch, Sherlock Holmes, Man from U.N.C.L.E., and then most recently he did Aladdin. So if you've seen any of those movies, you've seen
okay.
And he's really known for his style. He uses a lot of the same actors in his movies, and he does like a lot of cool like action scenes. And so this is a movie that's kind of more like a sophisticated action comedy or a dark comedy. And it stars Matthew McConaughey, Charlie.
All right.
Yeah, Charlie Hunnam, Colin Farrell, and Hugh Grant, which some will say Lane favors.
Well, yeah, it was about 50 pounds.
But anyway, so you've got like this all-star cast of these action stars, and basically the plot of the movie is you've got Matthew McConaughey, who is like the lead. He plays this guy named Mickey Pearson, and he's like this American, super smart businessman, graduated from Oxford, and he's like an outsider. He's not as well known, but he's like in his realm, he's like the top dog. And it's funny because his realm and industry is this giant marijuana empire that he has created, where he's got like all these different secret farms in London, and he basically runs this multi-million-dollar business underground, and became super rich by it. And basically the kind of the plot mover is that he's looking to kind of cash out on it and sell it to some other businessmen so he can make even more off of it. And so, of course, because of that, it triggers a lot of, plots and schemes to try to get his business or get his money, with bribery, blackmail, and like almost kind of turns into like a whodunit. At some point, like this movie just kind of goes in so many different directions. You're like, oh my gosh. It's just like pulling back each layer of like all these plots and schemes to try to get this guy's business. And like I said, with that cast, you can only imagine what kind of hijinks goes on. But I really enjoyed it. It's kind of hyper violent, but at the same time, it kind of really gives you an interesting look into the underground marijuana industry. And I don't know if this is based on a true story or not. I'm sure it's probably not. But Guy Ritchie, like he wrote the screenplay and directed it and came up with a really interesting story. And like I said, kind of has many layers to it and all these characters going after this guy's business and how, somebody like, Matthew McConaughey, he's very sharp individual, kind of plays that kind of character, and just seeing how he reacts to all these schemes. And I mentioned Hugh Grant. He kind of plays this private investigator that has all this dirt on Matthew McConaughey's character, and so he's trying to like get that information through whether that's blackmail or something like that to kind of get him, arrested and taken out, essentially. And so he's kind of, I would say he's more of like the antagonist of the movie, but it's interesting to see how his character plays into the whole thing. Like I said, I won't give any major points away, but like his character really kind of like unfolds a lot of the layers of each movie. But yeah, I missed it when it was in theaters. I think it may still be in some theaters now that they're starting to reopen. I know Cinemark has it playing, but it came out in like I said, early parts of the year, January, February. But it's a really good movie. I watched it on iTunes. I think it's also available on Amazon Prime Video. Or you can catch it in the theater. But like I said, great movie. Have any of you guys seen The Gentleman? And if so, or if not, what do you think?
I haven't, but I definitely want to check it out. I think it would be cool. I like those type of I like those type of movies. I think it grabs my attention very well. So I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, going into it, I really had no idea what kind of movie it was about. I just saw Guy Ritchie, I saw directing, and I saw Matthew McConaughey, Colin Powell, Hugh Grant. I'm like, okay, if it's anything like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or any Sherlock Holmes even, I was like, this has got to be pretty good. And so I just sat and took the ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I actually saw the description of it and whatnot. Like you said, like I knew all about the actors and whatnot. I just didn't know where to stream it, so I just kind of forgot about it. But now I know. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
So I'll have to go check it out.
Definitely.
Sure.